Hi, I'm Eve.
Hi, I'm Angelica, and we are LooSE TV, the student-led TV station here at LSE.
So we're currently in front of the executive office, and you might wonder why. So there's currently a perception among students that they do not feel as connected to the leadership as they feel they should. And we're here to fix that. That's why we're launching a new mini-series in which we'll discuss with LSE management issues that are the most important to you. And we decided to inaugurate this new mini-series with an interview with Professor Kramer, who's the President and Vice Chancellor of the LSE.
We came to you guys to ask you to submit any questions or interests or concerns that you might have on Instagram so that we can bring them to Professor Kramer himself so that he can provide answers to the student community.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? So thank you so much for taking the time today to do this interview for us. It matters to a lot of people in this institution. Just before we start, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, so Larry Kramer, I'm the President and Vice Chancellor here.
Thank you very much for this introduction, Professor Kramer. Just to explain to you how this interview will unfold, so we'll be asking you a range of questions that are taken from student submissions about education at LSE, the student experience, campus activism, and wider politics. We'll then finish this interview with a range of light-hearted questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
Amazing. So first, before delving into the core of the interview, I just wanted to ask you introductory questions that's related to the aim of this interview.
Sure.
There's a perception among students that they do not know the LSE management as much as they feel they should. And we just wanted to ask that, do you feel that you're in touch with your student body? And what would you do to ensure that your presence reaches those students?
Yeah, so I'm as in touch as it's possible to be personally. I mean, we get a lot of information, so I don't feel we're out of touch in the sense of not having a sense of what student concerns are, because we have a lot of input from the student union, from the student societies, from lots of students who just email and so on. But, you know, it's hard if you're in my role to actually spend a lot of time with the students directly. I miss teaching the most. I really wanted to teach, and I still do, but I have to travel so much for the school that I can't do a whole term. So I do lectures, but any chance you get. And I think that's true for everybody in the management. You know, as much chance as we get, we like to, but there's a lot of people and a lot of stuff to do, so it's hard to do as much as you want.
Perfect, thank you. So now we're going to dive into the heart of the interview by starting with the first theme, which is education. So the first question is about the value of education, and it's come from our students, from the student body. So recently there's been a lot of growing questioning of the value of higher education, where a lot of people are questioning whether high tuition fees are justified by a university degree. So our question would be, how would you respond, and what do you think is the value of a university degree nowadays, now that it's increasingly contested?
Yeah, sure. So first, I mean, look, from a straight financial perspective, the fees are more than justified in the sense that there's a ton of evidence that the careers that people are able to go on to if they get higher education degrees more than pay back and do much better than if you don't. So I think but that's not really the right perspective from where I sit. I mean, the question is, what is it giving people that matters? And it depends on the person. So I actually don't think, the traditional college university experience is right for everybody. And I don't think it's better than all sorts of versions of vocational education. It depends on what kind of career you want to have, and that should drive it. I do think it's really important that many people in society get the kind of education you get at university, not just for careers, right? But I mean, to be a citizen in a democratic society, the things that you learn, the interactions that you have, particularly at a place like LSE, where they're going to be with people from all over the world, and the way in which it widens your perspective, all that's really, really critical for citizenship as well as for career. And that's something universities uniquely do and uniquely have done for, more than a millennium. And so I think it remains really important, just not necessarily for everyone.
Very comprehensive answer. The next question is about academic structure. So a lot of students are expressing concerns about issues that span exam information release or course selection. And whilst we know that this can be a bit beyond your control, our simple question would be, how important, how much of a priority are these issues in the eyes of the LSE administration system?
Well, so they're a huge priority. I mean, we exist in order to educate the students, and it's really important that the students have a good experience while they're here. So there's nothing that has a higher priority. There are definitely issues, and we're actually working really actively to address them all. And they run the gamut from some outdated technology, some processes and rules and principles that are also outdated. And so all of that is being looked at. It's really complicated. I mean, it is still a big school, and making all of the many different pieces fit well is a challenge. But what I would say is I can promise that over the next couple of years, all of those issues, which we are well aware of, are being addressed and will be addressed.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Last question about education. We wanted to ask you a question about AI. So currently, LSE offers a range of AI tools to supplement student learning. For example, there's a partnership with Anthropic for the use of Claude. However, the role of AI in education remains a contentious subject, and AI policies vary across departments here at the LSE. How do you see education evolving in the age of AI, and how should LSE adapt to ensure that students are ready to work in a world where there will be AI?
Yeah, so that's a hard question to answer in brief because it's a really complicated thing. What I would say for sure is we're just at the beginning of this. AI is in its infancy in the form that we've now, generative AI, which means we need to be flexible and adaptive in figuring it out. So one of the reasons we have different rules across departments is we're actually giving departments room to experiment so that we can see what works. Because to make one central choice and impose it on everybody at this point, we just don't know enough. And the tools themselves are changing rapidly, and we'll have to be evolving with all that. There's no question that it's going to fundamentally change education. First, it's going to change the jobs that people are going into, and so we're going to have to change the education for that. And second, it's already changing how you deliver the material. And the school is firmly of the view that the answer is not to try and suppress usage, but the opposite, right? We should say to students, embrace it for all it's worth. And now the challenge is for us is to figure out now how do we teach you? And the biggest challenge is how do we keep people from using AI to take shortcuts? I could tell you how to play the guitar, and you will not know how to play the guitar. You have to sit down with a guitar and pluck out bad versions of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and get better at it and then try harder songs. And learning is just the same. So we want people to use AI for all it's worth, but we want them to understand that if you use it as a shortcut, you're cheating yourself. And then we have to figure out how to build structures where we can make that possible for students and still be educating them in things that they need. And as I say, there's not one answer to that. It's going to differ from discipline to discipline, even from course to course. And so we'll all be figuring this out together over the next few years.
Are you thinking of bringing some workshop with, for example, careers about potentially bringing AI into, for example, job search or just career opportunities?
Oh, all that is going to happen. All that's in process. So we'll be doing that for sure. Part of the administrative rebuild, it's not just those student issues around course selection or exams, or it also includes all of those things. And incorporating AI into our systems intelligently without locking in before, we know for sure what it's going to look like is absolutely central.
I think it's unspoken that these issues are in the works, but it is really reassuring for people to know that it is something that is painfully aware of.
Yeah, it's a super high priority. I mean, there's, you can't turn a blind eye to it. It's happening. And so the question, I want us to be on the forefront. I mean, right now, honestly, I think it may be hard for people to believe, but on the AI front, LSE is a year or two ahead of almost every other university I'm aware of, including the American ones.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Great. Well, now we're going to go into the second theme of the interview, which is about the LSE experience beyond academics. So the first question is, we were talking about careers, so I'm going to ask a question about career development, where, as everyone knows, LSE is known for being career-oriented, especially where students during their time at university are very focused on finding a career, even while during their studies. So what does LSE plan to do to support students in their career opportunities, and especially students who maybe might struggle more in terms of what careers they want to go into? So, for example, careers beyond the ones that LSE caters for the most, so for example, beyond finance or consulting, for example.
Yeah.
Is there any support that is going to be implemented?
Somebody just asked me a question like this recently, and I went over to the careers people and I asked them about it, and they were hurt because they feel that they're already doing so much for the careers beyond consulting and the firms, but just somehow it doesn't seem to be getting out. So I think that's one thing, which is we obviously need to communicate better what the opportunities are so students feel they can take advantage of them. And I mean, I don't know the details. I mean, honestly, it would be better to talk to the people in LSE careers. I mean, what I would say is, again, it's something else that's a very high priority to just maintain we stay on the cutting edge. So we've had, the best career success over the last 4 or 5 years in the UK. It's a big part of the reason for the ranking that we got. But it's something you always have to stay on. I really, really strongly believe that it's important that we provide support for people who don't want to go into the kind of conventional economic careers and want to do other things. And it's good for the school for them to do it. And we have tons of alumni out there who do that. So as I say, some of it's communicating, some of it is making sure that people know they can come and ask and that there actually will be help for them. I think that's a big part of it. And then if we're actually falling short, otherwise that would be one of the things to hear from students so that we could figure out how to improve it.
So earlier in the interview, we mentioned questions about high tuition fees. And now I'm going to ask you a question about affordability, especially food on campus. So as you may know, high costs are one of the biggest disadvantages of living in London, especially when it comes to food. As a result, a lot of students find themselves unable to afford the food options that are on campus. Students have many times voiced that they're concerned about it and they wish to have more affordable options on campus. And wanted to ask you, what specific action can LSE take to ensure that there's more affordable options on campus?
Yeah, again, I'm sorry if I'm not necessarily the right person to give the answer to those kinds of questions. The most I can do and will do, I can't say I've done that yet on this issue, is communicate to the estates people. I actually have a check-in later today with them to ask that question and what they're doing about it. The one thing I know I've heard that we are going to do something about, although I have to push people, is microwaves. Yes. I mean, I keep hearing over and over again, which kind of shocked me, just that should not be an issue. And so, my understanding is some of the departments don't want microwaves in their common rooms because of, I don't know, the odors or something like that. But clearly students care about it a lot because we keep hearing it a lot. So I think that'll be one of those things that maybe the center says, we do like to give departments autonomy, but on this one, really, guys, you're just missing the boat. So please do this. So, but it's, as everything here, it's a conversation. I mean, people don't realize I actually can't really tell people what to do. It's not like being the president of a university isn't like being the CEO of a corporation. It's still all by persuasion to the extent that I can persuade, and more. I used to say at the Hewlett Foundation, I was the boss, and here I'm more a servant. I mean, my job is to help facilitate everybody else's work. And so, with that in mind, though, this does strike me as something that ought to be an easy win.
Yes. Just one question as a follow-up to this conversation. For example, for people who would like to raise this issue, who could they contact to talk about this further?
Well, contact me. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to be contacted directly. Any of the people in SMC, if it's the microwaves or food options, it is estates and catering. So, send the messages to them. But if it comes to us, at least we can, push back down and say, you guys must be hearing this. So what are we going to do about it?
Amazing. Great. The next question is about LSE's diversity. So obviously there are a lot of students from different religious and ethnic backgrounds. So for that in particular, when it comes to religious inclusion, just for informational purposes, first of all, how does LSE cater for all those different religious needs? And then would you say that there could be room for improvement if there should be any?
Well, there's always room for improvement on anything, and I don't mean that glibly. I mean, that is just actually true. We have a faith center. The faith center works hard, I think, to try and provide for the religious needs and worship needs and other needs of the students for whom, religion is a core part of their identity and something they need to express while they're here. The way we've done it is there are representatives of each of the major religious groups who are staff in the Faith Center to hopefully hear and help with those complaints and those issues and make provision for what people need. So as I say, I'm sure there's room for improvement, but that one's a hard one because one of the things also to recognize is students are turning over every year. So the issues that may be raised one year, may not be raised in the next year, and then the issues that come up that year may be new. And so it's a kind of constant adapting and adjusting to not so much religious differences as differences in the people and what they think they need on campus.
So now we'll be moving on to the third theme of this interview, student activism. So LSE has a long history of student activism and is still very present today on campus. What do you think is the role of student activism at LSE? And given the current climate where freedom of speech is contested around the world, do you feel that LSE provides an environment where students can express themselves freely?
Yeah. So I wouldn't frame the question as what is the role for student activism on campus, in the sense that the role of the campus and the university is to facilitate an opportunity for students and staff to explore ideas and figure out who they want to be and what they want to do and so on. So it's more, the second part of your question, do we create an environment in which students who want to either protest or want to push for things feel they can do so? So my own feeling is yes. Where we run into issues today actually is where the student activists themselves sometimes want to shut down the people who don't agree with them. That is, they want to shut down people on the other side. So the free speech challenge is to say, that's not the kind of environment that we want here. And in fact, we want an environment where the answer to profound disagreement isn't to shut down or exclude people who have the other views, but to engage with them. Because when you go out of here, you're going to have to do that. And our job is to prepare you for that. So it's not always necessarily what people want, but I think it's about as good an environment as you can have for people to really explore their ideas. Do we get that right all the time? Of course not. These issues are really fraught for people. People get hurt easily. They misinterpret things or sometimes interpret them rightly, and people have communicated in ways that are challenging and so on. So that one's a constant, ongoing challenge. But again, given that you're never going to get this right anywhere, I do feel at LSE we've come as close as any of the institutions I've been at to creating an environment where people really can explore their ideas and push their ideas. They just have to sometimes accept that they may not persuade everybody else to agree with them, or that the school may not agree with them on what they want us to do.
But as long as they are able to express that as well.
Yeah. And as long as they do it in ways that don't, as I say, harass or intimidate or bully other people or shut down other people who want to express their own ideas or are trying to just go about their regular business. There are more than enough opportunities to do that without having to have those consequences. And that's not fair to the other people. So that's, again, where sometimes the challenge is. People who really feel passionately about something and know they're right, will sometimes do that. And we have to find ways to give them opportunities to express their passions, but also, protect the rights of the other people.
Great. Thank you. So next up, it's about the concerns where students have expressed demands for divestment from LSE. And although there has been a review of LSE's ESG policy, which is the Environment, Social, and Governance policy, unfortunately, the outcome was not very well received by the student body. And so given that we are a platform that is essentially aiming to create some transparency between the LSE leadership and the student body, we were just wondering what your response would be to this situation.
I mean, in some sense, it follows from the last one, which is a group of students felt very strongly about how the school should manage its investments. The school said, let's have a process. We had a year-long process. There were, I think, 5 or 6 town halls where people could speak. Everybody who wanted to could provide a written submission. There were multiple opportunities and workshops and so on. And another group that was set up to put in feedback. And at the end, the decision was made was one that people didn't agree with. But that's what happens sometimes. So I think you couldn't have asked for either a fuller or more transparent process than the one that we actually had. People who felt strongly on all sides of that issue were allowed to directly address. Remember, this isn't a decision that's made by management. This is a council decision, but they were allowed to directly communicate with and address council. And, the decision was made that not everybody liked. And that's how things work in an organization or in a society. The other thing to recognize with respect to divestment is I've said this publicly, it's not a democratic decision. It's not a popularity vote. The council has a fiduciary responsibility because the consequences of the choices that are made on those investments are not felt by the students and faculty today. They're felt by students and faculty in the future. That's the way investments work. So the consequences, and they can be pretty dramatic, are down the line. So when you're thinking about it from council's perspective, you start with our primary mission is education that does include taking into account things other than maximizing returns, and we will do that. But then we have to balance the extent to which the consequences of one kind of action are going to be felt by other people in the future, and the extent to which we think what we would be doing now that they're asking us to do will actually make a difference, and how doable is it? And depending on the issue, there were really complicated choices to be made. It just isn't as simple as I think the people who want us to just divest really think. And it's not that you can't justify that decision. As I said, we also there'll be an annual meeting to continue looking at it. And some other universities, although very few, have made the other decision. And if it turns out that our judgment about either the consequences or the difficulty is wrong, we would revisit. But the council's decision for now was that on balance, it looked like the smart thing to do, the better thing to do for all of the interests that the school has to balance was to adopt the ESG policy that they did, which of course has exclusions, but just not all the ones that people wanted.
Thank you for these clarifications. So now we'll be moving to the last core theme of this interview, which is broader politics, and we're going to start with UK politics. So it's impossible to ignore events happening just down the road in Westminster, and with the rise of third parties such as Reform UK and the Green Party, we wanted to ask you, how do you think the fragmentation of UK politics will impact LSE and its community?
I wish I knew the answer to that. If you project forward, I can think of two things. So one is if politics in the UK goes down a path similar to what's happened in the US and many other countries in the world, everything will get harder for us because we are still in a position, not just LSE, but all of higher education in the UK that's highly dependent on the government. That's why a big part of the efforts that I think I'm making in this role and trying to work with the school and our alumni to do is to make us less absolutely dependent on the government. But as long as we are, the more disrupted it gets, the harder it gets for us. And if a government comes in that really is opposed to higher education and thinks badly of it, that can only hurt us. So that's, and then the other is, and just in terms of the research opportunities for our faculty and the job opportunities for our students, obviously, again, as things get disrupted in the UK, as your government becomes less functional, all sorts of bad things happen in the economy and in the society. So, so those kinds of consequences are likely to play out as well. I worry about the former. I worry about, even the current Labour government has been extremely bad for higher education. And it's partly because we're actually politically vulnerable. There's not a huge political constituency out there that wants to defend universities. They don't hate us, but they just don't think, they just don't think about us that much. So when you need to make a statement, it's easy to impose the political cost of that on us because nobody's going to get that upset except for us and the people who get hurt. So you want to make a statement about immigration, make it harder for foreign students to come to study in the UK. That's easier than actually dealing with the hard immigration issues. That kind of thing happens quite a bit. A department thinks it needs a little money. Let's add a tax onto the fees that, universities charge, and we'll take that and use it for our other priorities. I mean, there's a lot of that happening, and that will get worse, I fear.
Right. So to conclude this section, as someone who has worked in both the UK and the US higher education system, what do you think our American counterparts could learn from the British system and vice versa?
Wow, that's another big question. So, the things that I love about the UK higher education system, so there is a way in which a lot of the kind of frills that have come to occupy a big part of what happens in the US on campuses are not here. So there's a much more kind of serious focus on education and the core things, even beyond the strict education, that really make for a great college experience. So I love that. I think, on the flip side, some of those frills are actually really good for students, so we could take a few things here. And then, from my perspective, the thing I think that's best about U.S. education that we don't do here is the liberal arts idea, which is to say, not specializing right away. I would love at some point to get to the place where we have a general course that's 1 year for students from abroad, where actually there was like a BSc in social science. So you could spend 3 years studying all through this university and get a kind of liberal arts in the social science education, and then stay for a 4th year and do a master's and specialize at that point. I think that's the biggest disadvantage, relatively speaking, between the two systems.
Well, thank you very much for these questions. Now we'll be moving to the last section of this interview, which is a more fun one. We'll be asking you some light-hearted questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great, let's
Let's
go. We're going to start with a very easy question. What is your favorite LSE building?
Actually, that's not so easy.
That was the irony.
Yeah. I mean, Marshall's like really impressive building. You got to love it. This building, though, is...
Some people might disagree.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd be curious what people don't like about it. I mean, it's except for the elevator. The elevators all through LSE, I mean, are really... I don't quite understand it. There's like elevator time. I have to add 5 or 7 minutes on any move across campus just for the elevators. Yes, because there's too few elevators here. Let's see. I do love some of the... I hope 61 is going to actually be the build, 61 Aldrich that we just bought. I'm hoping we can turn that into something really great. Some of the really, having grown up where I did, some of the really old buildings I think are really, really cool. So like the building where the George IV is, I lived there for a few months when I first came here. I actually loved, on the outside. I don't know. What's your favorite building?
Very interesting coming from, given that LSE is mostly modern architecture. I would say definitely Marshall, but I've grown very fond of CBG recently.
Yeah, well, this is also a really functional building except for the elevators. And the common spaces, Rogers, who was the architect, Richard Rogers, did an amazing job. Like this, turning the stairs into hangout spaces and workspaces, I thought was really, really smart.
The CBG is really nice, especially when you can go top floors where you have this incredible view, 11th floor.
Yeah.
And which one is your least favorite building?
Oh, the towers. I mean, I don't think I even need to elaborate. I mean, they have all the we'll see what happens. They'll either be renovated or something. We have to do something with them. I mean, they're also environmentally behind, so we have to do something with those. But the elevators aren't good. The spaces are weird and weirdly constructed. It's hard to get around in them. Yeah, they.
Nice. Okay, so now what's your favorite LSE pub?
We have a lot of them.
Yes,
I will say for such a tiny campus. Probably the George IV. But again, I lived right above it, so I went there a fair amount at the beginning, and it's the most spacious. I have the 3 tons, interestingly enough, I mean, I get it. It feels too modern to me. You know what it feels modern, maybe that's not the right word. It feels more commercial than the other 2 spaces. Yeah. And then the White Horse is great, but it's small and crowded, and even the outdoor space there is crowded. So I kind of like the spaciousness of inside and outside the George IV.
Thank you for these very critical comments.
Yes.
So next up, what is your favorite type of event that LSE hosts?
I don't know. I mean, God, there's so many. I don't think I have a favorite. I mean, the panel discussions can be great. The individual lectures can be great.
What would be your favorite to do, maybe, personally?
I like participating in panels or where there's real exchanges and opportunities. I mean, I did some of the, I don't know who was sponsoring them. Maybe it was LSE Life, where, you'd sit with groups and they would give you a question and you discuss it at the question and then share. I like those kinds of, anything that's interactive, where you can really interact with each other is more fun than just talking at or being talked at.
And now, what's your favorite place to go in London?
Oh, wow. So I don't know. I mean, I'm still figuring that out because there's so much to explore. One of the things I love about London is it is like the best city to walk in. So there's so many different things. I love going to the markets. I go to Portobello sometimes on the weekends, or there's a really great flower market on the east side that I love to go to, even though I'm like the world's worst gardener, so the flowers die. Plastic plants die in my home. I love the theater. And Covent Garden is a fantastic area just to walk through. Yeah, I would say kind of all of London. I definitely don't have a favorite place yet.
It's such a tough question.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I do. There are things to do, though. Like one of my favorite things to do that most people don't even realize. If you go to any of the big cathedrals for evensong, which is at the end of the day, and hear the choral music, it's free and it's just incredibly beautiful. At St. Paul's is my favorite because it was a space built for that kind of music. And so that's one of the things about London. There's so much free stuff, free, great culture stuff. Music is one of the best.
Good tip. Yeah, kind of in line with that question, but in an abstract or physical sense, what is your favorite thing about London?
Yeah, and honestly, it's my favorite city that I've lived in, and I've lived in a lot of cities. I mean, I lived in Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Washington, Paris, Tokyo, for a long time, and then and London is my favorite. But it's the cumulative things. It's that it's so walkable. It's that it's really beautiful city in a weird kind of like a Jackson Pollock painting, because the architecture is so varied and mixed. It's a great city to eat. The theater is amazing. There's so much culture and it's accessible. If you go to New York now, it's like they have everything, but it's always overcrowded. It's always difficult to get tickets or impossible to get in or super expensive. London still, if I know it feels expensive compared to a lot of places, but to me, and the museums are free. There's so much that you can do here. So people are nice. The public transportation actually is great. So I can't point to a single thing. I just think it's, as a city as a whole, it's so diverse. It's just a really cool place.
So you said you lived in multiple cities, and building on that, which country would you like to visit in the future?
Well, again, there's so many. So I don't know the most, because if you ask me any given day, it might change. My daughter and I now do a 2-week trip every year together, and now I let her pick. But so it's a different place. So the first year we went to Spain, the second year we went to Japan. This year we were going to go to Italy, except I have to do this in August, and Italy in August is going to be too hot and crowded. So I've said to her, so we're thinking about Sweden or Scandinavia. So I haven't been up there. I've been to Finland, but that's it. So I think that'll be really someplace I'd love to go. I haven't been to Brazil. I'd like to go to Brazil. The world's a really big place with too many really amazing places. So, I would like to get to all of them eventually. I can't give it. It's like asking me what my favorite song is. There's just too many.
That was going to be the next question. Okay. Great. So, okay, what are your thoughts on King's College and UCL?
I don't know how to answer that. So the vice chancellor there, Katish, is a close friend. We've become friends since I came here. He was incredibly kind to me when I arrived, and we're neighbors. So I spent a lot of time with him. King's is they're 40,000 students. We're 12,000 students. They're not really the same kind of university. They're a full service university. We're very focused. So in that sense, they're just apples and oranges. The only thing I would say is I do wish there was more collaboration. They're across the street, and there'd be so many more opportunities than we have to exchange faculty and students and share classes and research. When I was at NYU, we actually shared classes with Columbia. So NYU students could take classes at Columbia and vice versa and get credit for them and mix and just take advantage of things that they had that we didn't. Faculty, there's just I would say I think King's is a great school. It's got a lot of strengths, and it would be nice if we got more of the benefit of them and that they got more of the benefit of ours.
And what's one thing people don't know about being president and vice chancellor of LSE?
I don't know. I think the thing maybe I talked about earlier, which is the job comes with a lot less authority than people think. And that's not just mine. I should say it's when I was new in teaching, my father died, and he had a small restaurant in Chicago, and I had to take it over for a year while we figured out, what to do about it. And so it was my first time being an actual boss. And I realized very quickly that, it wasn't what you thought. You couldn't just tell people what to do. And you needed them, to want to do the jobs that you needed. And so all of these leadership positions, you just can't decide and do things. And I think people seldom really appreciate that and just how complicated it can be. And the bigger and more complicated the institution, the less you can really just, rule by fiat. And particularly in an institution like this, because it's filled with brilliant people who are strong-minded and who have views of their own. And so you just can't, operate that way. So I think that's probably the main thing people realize. And at LSE, it's true also formally and not just in that practical sense, but there are whole things in the school that they're not within my domain. I literally can't do anything about them or can't interfere, often for good reasons. Take student disciplinary proceedings. Like, I obviously cannot have anything to do with those. I do have something to do with the policies, but not with the actual case, and so on. So there's many things like that.
What is an LSE society right now that you would like to give a shout out to?
No, you can't make me do that. I'm going to get all sorts of people upset. So the ones that I'd like to see more of and have more of myself are the performing arts ones.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I do think what I would love to do is we've been in conversations with the Courtauld Gallery, with Somerset House, with a bunch of the museums, John Soane Museum, with the Opera House, to see if we can figure out ways to incorporate more arts into the life of the students here. I know it's there, and I know it's already in our student body. I was talking to a prospective student last week who's been studying drama, and her long-term career aspirations are to act, but she does want to come to college here. And we were talking about just theater in the school, and I realized I'm sure we have a drama society, but I haven't actually seen any productions, and that kind of. My wife was an actor. My daughter was going to be an actor, so she decided she wanted to be a singer. I just think it adds so much to the daily life.
Yes.
So all of those.
Great.
Talking about student life, what people want to know is, if you were a student here, would you do the LSE Athletic Union carol?
The
Carol, the day where students from the Athletic Union, they dress up in costumes and they go have fun during the day.
I would say I'm more likely to do it now than I would have been when I was a student. Yeah, I think when I was a student, I was too shy or insecure to actually act out that way. Now you realize actually nobody is going to care badly, and it can be fun. So, I think that's the best. So they should ask me now. Maybe I'll think about it.
Now you see. And which costume would you wear?
Well, what are my choices? Anything I want?
You can pick whatever you want.
Wow, I don't know. I probably, I'm a big sci-fi fan, so maybe something out of a Star Trek or Star Wars.
Okay, this is a very pressing question that a lot of people want to know. What is your favorite video game?
No, so I'm not a video game person. I'm just not.
Sorry to disappoint.
And the reason is just, I will say it's not because I think there's anything wrong with them. It's that I'm really, really bad at them. Really bad. And it's just no fun to do something that you're that bad at. So, when I was young and they were first starting, I would play, Pac-Man and Star, what was it? Yeah, the classics. And I was bad at those too, even then when I was young. So, I did Minecraft for a while with my daughter, but that was mostly to help her. And then she got so much better than me, it was embarrassing. So, yeah, sorry to disappoint, but it's not because I look down on them.
Next one is about food. Do you prefer English breakfast or Sunday roast?
Sunday roast. I think English breakfast is kind of gross.
Oh.
You don't? It's like meat, and beans.
So divided. It's so divided. There's no in between. It's either people hate it or they.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. No, it's too much meat. I mean, I'm a breakfast for lunch person. So eggs, a little bacon, toast, some fruit. That would be that for me is an ideal breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, what would be the best way to celebrate LSE's 130th anniversary?
I don't know. Any anniversary that's worth celebrating, I guess, you want to look at the past and help people remember some of the amazing things that have happened here, create opportunities for people to express some of the great things that are happening now here. And this is, I think, the way we've been thinking about it. So over the course of the year, just to try and make sure we have events that sort of pull those strands. I can't think of any better way to do it. It's not like you're going to have a big dinner or anything like that. Yeah. For a really red letter one, say 150 or 100, then you're going to pull out the stops more. I think you can't do that every 5 years. So, we have a lot of amazing people who have been here or through here who aren't necessarily here anymore. So bringing them back to be with the people who are here. We have all those Nobel Prize laureates all over the world, to bring them all together and really show what the school is.
And the last question of this interview, what's the funniest thing that happened to you in your time at LSE?
I wish I'd heard this question before. Funniest thing? That anything especially funny has happened. I have to think about it. I've had a lot of fun things.
Interesting.
I know. Yeah. Isn't it terrible? I can't pull anything up now. Everybody's going to think like
about the job
or about me. Yeah, I don't know. What I would say earlier too. One of the amazing things about being here and in this role is I get to meet these amazing people. So all that travel, which is to meet our alumni all over the world, is incredible. And like in Malaysia, I will say the Malaysian Alumni Association threw the best party ever. So that was really fun, I guess. It was like a feast, and they did all these, they did a trivia game where they gave out prizes, but the trivia was really interesting and fun, and we did it by tables. So, so that was kind of fun. There's a lot of experiences like that. I haven't had anything horribly funny happen, or at least anything that I would publicly admit to. Let's say that.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Had fun.
No, it was good. It was good. I hope you'll do that. We could do this again, and you should do it. I hope you'll do it with some of the other people in the senior team.
We're planning a mini series.
And then I want to see how they all compare. I want to hear how they answer some of these
Should we keep the
questions.
same questions?
Yeah, you should keep the same questions.
Okay.
Be like a survey.
Could be. But thank you so much for
Yeah,
your time.
thank you.
And for answering these questions.
All
I'm
right.
sure everyone will be very grateful to
Yeah.
hear your answers.
No, well, I appreciate the opportunity, and as I say, I wish I could talk to everybody in person.
The feeling is mutual.
Yeah, thank you.